Today is August 29th, 2023. I was at a West Side Drive-In today, um, making fingers. Essentially, what that meant is that I take I take beef chubs, and then I trim the sinews off. Okay, sinews that are used for like making bow and arrows and stuff. A bow. so so I was making fingers, and I've been doing that for almost 2 years. Okay, and I was thinking about um, the trades that I made today, and I was thinking to myself now, uh, trading is essentially trading is essentially identifying levels and setups. And then after I identify those things, then I determine the thesis and then make the trade afterwards and then manage and then exit the trade. That's essentially, I was going to say trading in a nutshell, but so I was thinking of this specific terminology for that. I was thinking trading. Um, Trading basically boils down to that simple principle of identifying key levels as one confluence and the setup as another confluence, and any other information that's out there, like maybe the QQQ, the behavior of the QQQ in respects to that would be like three different confluences that I could use. That would be essentially defining three different confluences. And there could be some other things like moving averages that define on a daily time frame what the behavior of the stock is. So essentially tying everything together, just basically on a trade by trade basis, I'm essentially tying those components together to make a thesis and then taking it to the market. Uh, in marketing terminology, there is a thing called what is that? Like go to the market or something, right? So something like that. Go to market. Something called a go to market. Apparently, it's some sort of a plan that's used. And so in day trading, Wall Street is the market. And so I use that and then I enter into this trade based on tying those confluences together, those components, and then using it to enter a trade. So I have to identify that using the price, merely the price, just to enter the trade is not enough. It's not enough. Okay, I can say that, okay, well, Microsoft usually moves about $4 or $5 a day, and if it reaches that point, it has the it has a high it has a probability that it's going to stop at that point and it's going to fluctuate and will not move, and on a very rare case it will move beyond that. So I need to look at that as part of the information in me defining how I place that information into making a trade. So trading, I thought while I was like essentially doing that for a couple hours, I essentially just made fingers, 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 fingers. Essentially made like four bags of fingers. Okay, so two hotel pans, right? Medium-sized hotel pans. Uh, yeah, medium-sized hotel pans. One of them in the freezer, one of them in the walk-in refrigerator. So I'm thinking to myself, trading essentially is about, um, and I also thought about something like if, if this happens, then I need to do something else. If if this happens, then I need to do something else as well. And so me, merely looking at the price just to make the trade is not enough. I need to tie those things together to make a decision. And then when I want to make a trade, then I have to go through the process of going through that over and over again. A single bag has roughly about 20 chubs, approximately about 20 chubs. And these chubs go through a cycle. So making fingers and making a trade is very, very similar. So essentially I have to, and I'm like doing that for like a couple hours. And so essentially I take a chub approximately about this big, right? And there's like sinews. So what I do is I take the chub out of the bag one at a time. I place it on the cutting board, and I take my flat, wide knife, one knife, and I use the second knife. The second knife is sharper and flatter, and so that I can make it into different. I can slice it in thinner layers so that I could cross cut it so that I can make it into fingers. So essentially, the first step is I take a chub, and then I take the sinews off by taking a flat knife, and then I raise the blade a little bit so that it tracks the sinew. So that I can. I'm attempting to remove the sinew more so than the meat that is attached to it, so that I can preserve the meat as much as possible. Then I flip it over and I repeat that process over again. And then after I clean things up visually from the outside of sinews and fat, I take the fat and put it into a 9-pan, which is essentially a smaller pan. In this case, a shallow 9-pan. Actually, 3-pan. It's a 3-pan. So I put that in there so that can be ground up to be used to make something within the. I mean, these are expensive. These are expensive meat, and so that's what's used for it. Okay, and so when that happens, then I slice it with the other blade. Usually about 3 slices, three thin, maybe a half an inch thick beef slices. Then I take one of them and cross cut it to approximately again another maybe a half an inch wide all the way through. Then I take that and put it into my ice tray within a medium-sized hotel pan. Okay. And after I'm done with the 3 slices, then I grab another chub, and then I repeat the process over and over again. So what I am mechanically doing is that when I am done, I'm not even thinking about what I'm doing. So at the end of it, I start with the first chub, and then I end with the last chub. And then I go to another bag, and I start with the first, and I end with the last. And then on the third, I start with the first and end with the last. And then on the fourth bag, I start with the first and end with the last bag. And I repeat the process of doing that over and over and over and over. Now, what is missing in the day trading that I do is that it is essentially made up of it's not a physical thing. It's not a physical thing that I can grab onto, mold it, remove the sinew. The process of doing that is not physical. Because all I do is when I click something, it instantly becomes so it's like if I were to compare it between making fingers at a restaurant, a fine restaurant, versus day trading, is that when I click on it in day trading, it is essentially like taking a chub, click, and it turns into fingers. Whatever I do, whatever the steps that I do, it essentially forms into it. That's why it is so difficult. It is so difficult to partition these intricate steps that I am required, because I can skip a step and still it'll turn into a trade. But the quality of the trade is different. It is prone to susceptibility based on the fact that it's essentially, when I just look at the price and trade, it's gambling. Okay? But even if I'm gambling, the process of clicking a mouse and going to that step is essentially the same. So what I need to do is to sequentially go through the step over and over and over again, over and over again, so that I go through that sequential step to improve my process of trading. That essentially is trading in a sequential manner, so that I get into the habit of doing this, doing this, doing this, doing this, doing this, and then making a trade, and then deciding. Instead of looking at the price and saying, oh, that's what it is. Because that is a decision that is prone to a 50-50%, 50-50 kind of a situation. Even worse, not sure. So what I need to do is to really get into the process of mimicking what I do, making fingers, and then translating it into making the right trades. Okay.